Hello everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thank you for joining me. It is Saturday night. We are here live on the channel. Stoked to be back. Those of you guys who are joining me, I'll give you guys a couple minutes just to see who shows up. We're going to be doing live readings as we do every Saturday night on the channel. Tonight we're going to be taking a look at astrology. We're going to be looking at natal charts. So if you have questions about natal aspects in your horoscope, questions about transits, progressions maybe. Sometimes we look at lunar returns. It really just depends on what comes in. This is an awesome way to get a little bit of a sample of what it's like to get a session with me. Also, if you just want to hang out and kick back and relax on Saturday night and watch and learn a little bit about astrology, you can do that too. We always get some really fun people who show up and join us live during the readings. If you look down here, there is a QR code. You can scan that code and immediately be taken to the donation page to make a donation for a reading. We have a $40 US dollar minimum. If you have a question about a transit or your chart, if you have questions about synastry, okay, you can ask about your chart and another person, how you guys relate to each other. That's $65 donation. When you make your purchase, please follow these instructions. I would like you guys to put your name. I need your name, especially how it relates to your YouTube, if it's different than PayPal. Put in your question in the memo. I need the exact day, month, year, time, including AM or PM, and the city and the country. I need all of that information to be able to accurately pull up your chart. If you don't have it, no worries. We'll be back probably in around 2 weeks-ish time. We alternate every other week. So next Saturday will be tarot, but we will be back and be doing this again. So if you don't have that info, no worries. Although a lot of people who watch my channel do have that information, you can check out astro.com. Also, super free, easy way to pull up your natal horoscope and take a look at your chart if you have not before. Now, those of you guys who have not already seen me post about this on my social media, and also I think we posted on my community tab, I'm not sure, but I'm going to be teaching beginners astrology. I've got like 4 or 5 spaces left for the class. It's going to be starting next Sunday morning Pacific time. We're going to be meeting 10 a.m. Pacific on Sundays, and in the evening hours, I think it's, I can't remember, 5, 6 p.m. on Thursday evenings Pacific time. We're going to do 7 courses over 14 hours of lecture, and I'm going to be teaching beginners astrology from the ground up. So in that course, I'm going to be teaching all about how to read a natal chart, understanding the archetypes, all of the different planetary placements, basically just the basics so you can really sit down and understand, comprehend astrology, and know your way around a natal chart. I'm excited. This is the first time I've taught my beginners class in a couple years. It will eventually evolve into what will be, I think, intermediate and advanced classes, but we're starting off with this. I'm offering $100 off anybody who wants to take the class. It's going to be live in Zoom. We're going to have a presentation and then question and answer segment, also creating a closed group specifically for my students. So if you like the way that I read, you like my style, check out my links below, check out my website, and get one of those spots before they fill up for my classes. I've got openings starting for sessions one-on-one in May. And those of you guys who have been watching, you see my channel, there's all kinds of new content. I'm actually right in the process of getting ready to film the new moon in Aries tomorrow for you guys. I'm working on eclipse videos. We just put out over 2 hours of horoscopes for the month of April. The more that we get people who are liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, helping us get into the queue on YouTube. Also, if you want to join my memberships and become a member and donate to the channel, if you like the content we're putting out there, please do consider it. It makes it possible for me to create more and hopefully reach my goal by the end of summer of being able to put content out almost daily on the channel. So you guys are helping me do that. We've gone from 2 or 3 days a week, now sometimes to 4, maybe 5 videos a week. So we're definitely getting there. All right, so anybody who is a level 3 subscriber, that's the benefit of being level 3. You're gonna get 1 reading from me once a month on the channel. Whether you want a 3-card tarot reading or you would like to ask a question about your transits, that is included in the price. So if you do decide that you want to get a reading today, you can join level 3 and be able to cash in on that. Let me know if you guys make a payment in PayPal. Sometimes it's got a little bit of a lag. I do see that we already have somebody who's in the queue. So it looks like Tamara, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that right. Tamara, let me know if you're here. I see you asking questions about a quick solar return. We can take a look at some of the themes for the solar return coming up for the year ahead. But before we get to that, I just want to make sure there's no level 3 people here. And I want to give a big shout out to my growing list of members. Hip Hop is a new member. Thank you for joining. Jackie, Catherine, Angeli, Deanna, Hera, Nancy, Phoenix, Jessica, and Emma. Thank you guys so much for being members, supporting the channel, making it possible for me to do what I'm doing. What's up, Emma? What's going on? How's it going? Nice to see you. Hey, I'm a Dodger fan. There she is. Hey, Jennifer. For me to look at your solar return, can you let me know what city have you been residing in for the better part of the last 2 years, please? I see that you have London, Ontario, but I just want to make sure that's where you have been. I like to base it off of where you've been for the better part of the last 2 years. I find that that's the most accurate, but I sometimes do look at the natal as well, but that would be more in a session. So your birthday's coming up right after the new moon. 1967. 245. Oceanside. Okay, cool. Thank you. So she's asking questions about a solar return reading. We'll take a glance at it and just see what the most important points are. The solar return is the birthday reading. And we can take a look and see what's coming up for you. You read it kind of similar to a natal chart. Timing-wise, it's a little different. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at your solar return. Technically, sometimes your birthday is different, so it's not always going to be the exact same day. Sometimes it's the day before, sometimes it's the day after. Looks like your birthday is going to be on April 3rd, 2022 at 8:21 p.m. I'll give you the bare bones because, man, when I do a solar return chart, it's like I can talk for an hour. So we're going to talk about some of the main points. One being is if you look at the ascendant for this chart, the 9 o'clock hour, we have you at a 29-degree Libra rising. Boy, oh boy. So you look at the ascendant to see what the chart ruler is going to be. The ascendant's going to talk a little bit about what you're going to deal with for the year ahead. You've got, a 29, which does deal with kind of like a turning point. It's the ending point. It's pushing you to evolve, change, especially in regards to your relationship with other people. So in this chart, we want to take a look at where Venus is, what Venus is doing. If we notice, right around the time of your birthday, it's right when we're having the Mars-Saturn conjunctions. So you've got Mars and you've got Saturn meeting in your 4th house. So there seems to be a meeting of the minds revolving around home, domestic, dwelling, living situations. Mars rules your 7th house of relationships. Saturn rules your 3rd and your 4th house. So I'm wondering, are you moving? Are you returning home? Do you have to be there for a parent? Are you having a bit of like a dispute revolving around where you want to live versus a partnership? I will say that 29 degrees is sometimes associated and connected with a breakup sometimes, okay? It can be about breaking up with an old identity, an old version of yourself. It can be this feeling that you're breaking free. So even though that 29 degrees is a little difficult, we do see that Venus is at 28 degrees of Aquarius trining your ascendant. So it's saying pay close attention to the days leading up to your birthday, even the day of, the day after. Venus trining the ascendant is going, you know what, I need to have a more peaceful home. I need more freedom. You might be thinking about renovating, changing things in the house, stuff like that. I also noticed that Pluto at 28 degrees is in a square, so it's squaring your ascendant, squaring your descendant, still bringing up this theme of how do you communicate with family, how do you diffuse situations with family. Could it be that the Mars-Saturn stuff is you having issues with a partner's family, you having issues with peace in the home, maybe. It can also just mean that you're getting a little restless and you want to move some stuff around. In this chart, you also have the sun that's sitting in Aries. As always, it returns back to where it was when you were born, in your 6th house. So it's a 6th house sun year. It means you're all about organization, getting healthier, feeling like you're having more freedom in your schedule, quitting a job and moving, possibly. I would say the Sun Mercury makes me more feel like that would be becoming aware of your goals when it comes to your career, right around your birthday. You know, this is a year where you want to feel like you have more control of your schedule. So quitting a job, that is something you want to see more in transit. But the Sun conjunct Mercury is aligning your 11th house of goals, your 10th house of career. Perhaps maybe you're like, I need to have a job that's on my schedule. I need to work for myself. I need to have more independence. I need to structure things differently. It's definitely a very busy day with the Sun and Mercury in conjunction. Now, the other thing is that you do have your Moon in Taurus smashed, kind of sandwiched between Uranus and also your North Node. So a lot of the things that I'm saying to you, it may not surprise you. Like, I look at this chart and I go, whoa, definitely there are some issues feeling like you need to move or change something up within your home. If that goes hand in hand with needing to quit and start over, so be it. I think probably the most interesting thing is also the fact that you do see sextiles between your Sun and Mercury and Saturn, Mars. It's a lot of like, I need to do this, this needs to get done, boom, you get it done. But it's as a result of emotional frustration or as a result of feeling like you need to trim things down, get rid of stuff. So sometimes I've seen Saturn and Mars in a chart like this that's like, you know that you're moving. So you go, okay, we're cleaning out the closets, we're donating stuff, we're going to be organizing, we're going to just declutter in general to make the process of moving easier. I think a job change is more likely revolving around, look for like a full moon in Aries in the fall, maybe some transits that are going to be happening in your 10th house in August. That's another way that I would look at it. But busy, you know, busy is something that I would say kind of comes up with this. It's just more about you becoming more aware of getting into the flow of what works for you. I'm just curious, is there any like Libra risings that are watching right now? If so, let us know, because you could be going through these transits. It can be really helpful. Equally, if you're an early Scorpio rising, so if you're like the first maybe 10 degrees or so of Scorpio rising, or if you read your chart whole sign, Saturn, Mars, and Venus are all sitting in the 4th house. For a chart like this, because it does involve your 3rd house and your 7th house Lord. If you are partnered, it makes me feel like there's some karma coming up revolving around siblings of your partner, or there's some karma coming up revolving around a relationship or a friendship that you have with a sibling, an aunt, or a cousin that's getting flushed out this year. Notice that your birthday is literally the moment that, you know, Saturn and Mars is squaring the nodes. Okay. I'm going to talk about this a lot this week. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to do 2 separate videos for the Aries moon or just do a really long one, but I'll kind of condense it and basically say this. Over the next 2 weeks, more specifically in about the first couple days of April, I think I talked about this in my horoscopes, Mars, Saturn, Venus, all conjunct and square the nodes. That's basically saying when planets conjunct Saturn, it's time to toughen up. It's time to deal with karmic situations. We grow up, we mature. There's make or break moments going on with relationships and our values and what we're willing to fight for. But when it squares the nodes collectively, everybody's going to go through it. So people who either have a solar return like this that have squares between the fixed signs, or people who have planetary placements between, like, let's say 18 and 24 degrees of the fixed signs, Scorpio, Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, you guys are going to feel this crunch. It's almost like you feel like we're under pressure. that's the theme of the next couple of weeks. Pressure to get something done, to fulfill something within time, feeling like we're running out of time. So I look at this, and the pressure that's building is between your 4th house of emotions and family, going on situations with your home situation, and also relationships and partnerships. If you are partnered, I would say whether you're living with somebody, you're married, you're engaged, whatever, this looks a little stressful. You can, just for fun, apply this and take a look at how this is actually relating to your natal chart. That's something that I sometimes like to do to see if there's reoccurring themes. But I would say everything in this chart comes down to that Sun Mercury in the 6th. and Venus trining the ascendant. So it's trying to find peace, trying to find balance, trying to find harmony, having more freedom, having more space. And it looks like that is the goal for you in the year ahead. Just looking at some of these transits, maybe a good idea, if you're familiar with charts, to take a look at how it relates to your natal chart and see if there's some similarities, or book a reading, because every time, and this is just me personally, when I've seen a client have 29 degrees Libra rising, they go through some separation of something that year. They go, that's it, I'm not eating any more chocolate cake, or, you know, I'm filing for divorce, or I'm finally cutting my sister off. And in your case, it's something pertaining to do with the past, right? It's to do with the past. It can be friends from the past, Aquarius. It can be past issues that you no longer want to carry with you. So you have to assess that carefully and focus on, you know, from the time of the new moon all the way through the full moon, how you're making more time for yourself, how you're making more time for your health, for your happiness, to do the things that you want to do. I noticed that the sun is very closely tied to Chiron and also Mercury. So it can be like these obsessive thoughts about, oh my God, my goals, and how am I going to get time to do what I want to do and focus on my health and work the kind of career that I would want to work. So it's like a cleaning house year in all respects, literally and emotionally, to be able to better facilitate the schedule that you would like. Hopefully that's helpful. Happy early birthday to you. You'll have to let us know how that goes. What's up, Nin? Hey, Scorpion Goddess. Thank you very much for your donation. Let me pull your info up and let me see what we got going on. Yeah, life change, to say the least. A lot of it is how you communicate and how you think. That Pluto square is basically saying, if you don't like it, change it. Be mindful of the power of your words. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, so let's go ahead and plug in the next chart. You're welcome. June 29th, 1987. And that's at 10:17 p.m. in Baltimore. Oops. Turn that solar return off. There we go. Question is, I recently asked how I could lean more into my Scorpio MC, and the tarot really resonated. I was wondering if I could have some detail on this natal aspect as well. Let's see. On this natal aspect as well. What natal aspect are you asking about? Scorpion Goddess, it depends on what degree your Libra rising is. So it's going to be very specific depending on what degree it is. So it's not specific. Libra rising in general's got Saturn, you know, in their natal 5th house right now. Okay, so you're asking more about how I came to that conclusion in regards to your MC. So how did I come to this conclusion? I've got you here June 29th, 1987, 10:17 p.m., Baltimore. So I came to this conclusion by looking at the degree of your midheaven, okay? So your midheaven is 27 degrees of Gemini, Scorpio, hello. It's a Gemini degree. So I follow degree theory. It's one of the ways that I make predictions looking at the chart. It's probably one of the easiest ways and one of the ways that I have found that is like most accurate. If we look at the degrees that represent Gemini, not the sign, the degree. So it would be 3, 15, 27, okay? So in your chart, 27 degrees being the midheaven is telling me that we're taking your career, MC, 10th house cusp, under the lens of Scorpio, mystical, magical, metaphysical, insightful, psychic, intuitive, occult, using the Gemini degree, which means you literally could read cards with your hands, Gemini, to look into the future. But that's loose. We would also have to look at your Mars, so we'll go deeper. But you could also, with that 27-degree Scorpio, be somebody who writes reports on insurance cases or drives bodies from a funeral home, to a graveyard. It sounds kind of morbid, but you could be somebody who works as a surgeon and, uses your hands to suture and open people up and perform surgery. So it's very loose. I came to that conclusion because I saw your Mars in Cancer in the 6th house, which says, I like to do work by helping people, 6th house, intuitively, Cancer. And it's a pretty decent square. It's about maybe a little more than a degree away, from a trine. So Cancer, trine, Scorpio. So you've got Mars in your 6th house, Cancer. I use my intuition to want to help people, right? And wanting to relay information. I can see that maybe it's been more so since like 2020 and 2021. Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, they've all been in opposition to your Mars. That's why you've been like, I need a job that's going to allow me to feel comfortable in what I'm doing, that I'm helping people, that makes sense for me emotionally. And it's been a real turning point for you with all these oppositions the last couple of years, realizing that you need a job that doesn't push you over the edge emotionally or with your schedule to the point of not taking care of yourself. Like I could see the last couple of years, the transits are a lot of like, I can't even bring myself to going to work right now, I would imagine, or I need to hide out, or just mentally, emotionally, I'm not feeling well enough to show up to work, right? Or not liking the people you're working with, or having mental health issues or digestional issues to the point of being like, I'm dreading going to work. That's been the Pluto opposition to your Mars. Now, the last 3 months, you've had Mercury retrograde in opposition to your Mars. You've had, Venus retrograde in opposition to your Mars. It's been a lot of like, do I want to do this? Can I do this? Do I know enough about doing this? I like this. It's interesting to me, but I'm not really sure. Maybe I need to study more. So I can see you've been going back and forth, right? Do I do it? Do I not do it? And I would say to you that, number one, reading tarot or doing any metaphysical or reading work or whatever, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not necessarily easy. It can be really hard on the body. It can be really hard on the mind. So energetically, as I look at Pluto still in an opposition to your Mars, I feel inclined to tell you, really make sure that you learn and you learn well. Because you don't just have Pluto in opposition to your Mars, you have Pluto squaring your Jupiter. So you would actually want to invest in a program. Whole sign, Jupiter's in your 3rd, so it tells me that you really need to find a deck that you resonate with. It needs to make sense. You need to be journaling, learning the cards, probably doing a program, reading a lot of books, and working out of transit Pluto, oppose your Mars, square Jupiter, which is saying you're not going to feel right doing it until you feel like you have all the tools necessary and you feel confident. The good thing is, the good thing is that your Jupiter return is coming next year. Whole sign, it's in your 3rd. So it makes me feel like by the time Jupiter fully goes in next spring, maybe you could make a move like that, right? You could do something like that. Hey, I'm reading, I'm doing my own thing. Here's my Instagram, here's my, whatever. But you need a little bit more time. Equally, you have an eclipse that, or eclipses that have been aspecting your midheaven, making you go, okay, I'm done with one type of work. I'm ready to go into something else. Now the North Node eclipses are in Taurus in your 4th. So you're trying to figure out, where do I want to live? I'm developing my intuition. I'm reflecting a lot. I need a lot of quiet time and space. A lot of people don't realize in order to do the work like this and to stay sane, you need to integrate. There's a lot of needing to reflect and reading and integrating more than just being like, here's a card, here's what it means, right? If you're giving people life advice, you need to also really understand the more abstract, kind of like hermetic, philosophical side of things. So you're not just giving people, you're not peddling readings, you're actually helping them, right? So I think that a lot of what's going on is you're studying and you're learning how to integrate more. Long-term wise, I would say you're in this sweet spot where, you know, Jupiter is coming into a trine with your midheaven, Jupiter in Pisces, coming into a trine with your midheaven and your Mars. So there is like this power up going on really now through May, studying, taking courses, reflecting, trying to find what new ways to start businesses. You're going to get a lot of practice. And I would advise you probably, if you really want to start a business, to stay with this until after the new moon eclipse that's going to be happening in Scorpio later this year. Why? Because it's going to be conjunct Venus. And I could see you maybe taking a certification or doing another course or bringing in a teacher or doing something right around November. And then there's this turning point where sometime between November of 2022 and about April, May of 2023, that's when you may segue, right? If that makes sense. But that's how I came to that conclusion, looking at your chart, you know? It was literally that. Sorry, I moved this around a little bit. Literally just looking at that 27 degrees. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more insight. I would also say with Jupiter square your Mars natally, there is this sense of like integrating, doing a Jupiter return or a Jupiter transit, of going back, reading, focusing on something that makes sense. Jupiter in Aries in the 3rd house is making that connection with the mind of I know, I remember. And I think this is just me. Like I've taught astrology and tarot for a very long time. And I feel like I've had tons of readings. I've had readings with beginners. I've worked with people, and tarot really works well when you're in the flow, right? Not when you're pulling out the cards, shuffling, being like, hold on, let me look up the meaning, right? When you get to a point where you're confident in reading the cards, readings are going to flow because you're just going to connect with that. It's a closed system of divination. You're just going to automatically know this is what the element means. This is what the number means. This is what the card means. And you start to read it almost intuitively. At least that's how I do it. People want to get too technical about it. No, we want to know what the element means. We want to know what the number means, and then you move on. So I would encourage you, and I would tell you to do what I tell all my beginning students to do, is get the Rider-Waite deck, get a notebook, sit down every day, pull a card, sit with it, meditate. Before you look at the meaning, study it, what comes up for you, jot that down. Note everything you see in the card and what it could mean symbolically, jot that down. Look it up and look up what it means. Put the card out somewhere where you're going to see it throughout the day. Look for that symbolism in your life. You might pull the Queen of Wands, and then, you notice that you're driving past, a baseball field, and you see girls playing softball and hitting, a softball. And you're like, whoa, it's the Queen of Wands. You'll start seeing that energy once you start working with the tarot, and it'll start making sense, and you'll start applying quite literally, and you'll integrate it better. It'll take you, 78 days to go through that, to go through the whole deck. It'll take you another 78 days to, do the reversal. So when you think about it, it's not going to take you maybe more than, less than 6 months to, really go through all of those and learn what each card means and the reversal. And after jotting it down and working with it, you're going to feel more confident. But also it's about finding books or finding, teachers or people that you relate to better understand it. A book that I really love is The Easiest Way to Learn Tarot Ever by Dusty White. I recommend that to all my new students. I also really like 78 Degrees of Wisdom. I think that's an amazing book. Just to really go deeper into the more esoteric kind of side of the tarot. Rachel Pollack is one of the best when it comes to that stuff. And later this year I'm going to be teaching a tarot class. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you want to study with me and learn how I read, because I read very differently, I'm going to teach people in a way that's just learning the numerology and the elements, so that way you can look at a card and just know. But I also like to teach people how to read it intuitively. Keep up with it though. I think with the Jupiter trine, it can be really great. And by the time Jupiter retrogrades later this year, I think you're going to be a lot more. Okay, so you used to teach tarot, you understand. Yeah. But I would say for you, there's something about that can launch closer to next spring. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you. I like how the South Node is going over your midheaven, and you're not giving up your job. You're going back to something that you used to do. Yeah. Yes, she is. She's wonderful. There's another book. I don't have it on my desk right now, but maybe I'll try to post it later if you come back to this. There's a book that I found that's like super amazing. It's like an Egyptian tarot book, which sounds weird, but it's got all of these like ties to like secret studies and like secret society hermetic type stuff that like somebody recommended to me on a whim. They were like, oh yeah, somebody who's like 70 years old told me to get this book. It's really eerily creepy and very interesting. So I'll try to come back and post it later, but it's one of the better tarot books that I've never heard of that is very insightful for all different types of new spreads and different interpretations. And I've played around with the spreads to see if it really like works, and it does. It's just having to learn a lot of the system over again. Cool. Hey, Miss Fogel, how's it going? Everybody who's here. Yep, looking into ancient Egypt. Of course, with that Scorpio midheaven, you're doing that. Of course. Yeah, I'm really excited because when I start teaching my classes, I'm going to give people like master lists of being like, these are the books you want to read. Save yourself some money, read these books. Yeah, I'll get the book. I know what it looks like. I was messing around with it not too long ago. I'm looking at my bookshelf, but I don't quite see it, but I'll post it. If you guys follow my social media, go and follow my Instagram, Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. I'll post it later. I also, if you guys aren't aware, I have a book list. So whenever I'm like using a book on my channel or talking about something that like is really helpful, I use the Sabian symbols a lot. I put my planner, stuff on there, all kinds of things. I'm always updating that. So I think sometimes it pops up in the links below. You can actually go and click it and just see everything that I'm talking about. But if I can add that book to it, I will. Hey, Gail, how's it going? Those of you guys who are just tuning in, we're doing live readings, astrology readings. There's a QR code here if you want to donate. Happy to take a look at your chart. Please do not forget to put your exact time, date, and location and time of birth in the memo along with your name. All right, so we've got, is it Aileen? Aileen or Eileen? I want to pronounce that correctly. Who sent a Synastry question. Ooh. So, would love a Synastry read. Just met somebody new very unexpectedly and things are going so well. Past relationship fears are getting to me and I feel like I'm spiraling, but nothing is really wrong per se. What can you see between us, intentions, etc.? January 8th, 1974. At 8:05 a.m. So you have an Aquarius rising. Okay, just wanted to make sure that's right. And his info is July 23rd, 1980. Those of you guys who don't know what Synastry is, it's when we lay somebody's birth information over your natal chart and we see how the two charts interact. It's like looking at the chemistry, right? How you can see how all the planets interact with each other. July 23rd. Eileen, thank you. You can do super chat if you'd like to do super chat, of course. Aqua Goat Gal. How appropriate for an Aquarius rising and a 12th house Capricorn sun. Oh man. Okay, so obviously we don't know the exact time, so we're going to kind of look at this more so just in terms of the planetary aspects, but knowing that he's born on the 23rd. His moon is in Sag. His sun is in Leo. So the very first day of Leo. Well, what can I say? I mean, this is just me personally. I'm a huge fan of having a partner who has North Node, Sun, Jupiter somehow connected to the 7th house, right? So if this were whole sign, I'm not looking at it like that, but if this were whole sign, this would be somebody who has their Sun and their North Node in your 7th. So the 7th house does represent the people who we attract. It also represents the shadow self. So the fact that you've pulled somebody in whose sun is right along your 7th house cusp is good. It tells me that's a reflection of what you're meant to be kind of bringing in. My eyes get really big looking at his sun on your point of fortune or on your lot of fortune. I'm curious about that, actually. It makes me want to pull out my Sabian symbol book and see what that degree is. So technically it would be closer to 2 degrees of Leo. But when you have somebody who's got a planet on that, it can be important. It can basically talk about a fortunate event. People get fortune it's like a little misunderstood a little bit. I think in like current day astrology, you have to understand there's tons of lots in like ancient astrology, like all of the different lots that you can look at. But the lot of fortune is what we look at most of the time. And it just deals with fortunate events. So when there's a planet conjunct it or a major planet transiting it, it's important. So this would be for 2 degrees of Leo. Okay. All right. An epidemic of mumps. The keyword is infection. It's not meant to be quite like that. Opportunity for expansion. The symbol speaks to one or more aspects of the self getting completely out of control and to the tendency of a man to want to escape or avoid facing reality when life gets challenging, especially when there's no understanding of what needs to be done. The image of an epidemic suggests a situation that affects not only the individual but the group functioning. The emphasis is the reverse symbol on a temporary inability to continue in some capacity. Here is a call to realize that there is a reason for everything in life that happens. Self-expansion, watching out for dramatization, a build-up with momentum, healing may be needed. Well, we started the question off with being like, I'm kind of spiraling out. I don't know why. Everything's fine, but I'm freaking out. His sun sits on that for you. So there can be this sense of somebody comes in, oh, everything's going well. You kind of freak out, blowing the situation up out of proportion. He can have that effect on you. And it's like, what's wrong with me? Why am I behaving this way? It can actually activate something that's making you aware that there is a need for healing. Being open to receive, right? Receptivity. Also, I love that his Jupiter is very close to your vertex. I look at this and I go, I know it's more than just one aspect that we need to look at. Obviously, we want to look at like how the moons interact, how the Venuses interact, but like this guy just kind of like nails your chart all over. His Venus is conjunct your South Node. It's not exact, but it's pretty close, so it's kind of familiar. Possibly we even have his moon conjunct your North Node. So that seems to me pretty fated. There's a lot of particular points in this that are being triggered that perhaps maybe this is the person that shows up that pulls you out of your 12th house hiding zone and makes you realize like they see you. You've met somebody who sees you and you're like, oh my God, now I'm super vulnerable. Like, you know, such an interesting chart you have. Lilith, Mercury, Sun, Juno. I've met a lot of women who have Lilith, Juno, Sun aspects in the 12th, and it's always the mistress, never the wife. Or always this kind of connection with somebody where it's like misconnections, you know, it's like, you know, when you are in love with somebody, they're not available and vice versa, or you're used to having love at a distance. So when somebody does come in that's available, you don't always know how to act or behave. So I think this guy kind of triggers that for you. He's got his Mars conjunct your Pluto. That's pretty hot and sexy. I like that. I also like the fact that, I think he's mutable enough for you. You know, he's got a little bit of Virgo. He's got a little bit of Gemini. His moon Neptune in opposition to Venus makes me wonder if he's used to having women who are at a distance. We met the very day that Mars and Venus went into Aqua. Yeah. You know, I think that to me it feels super faded. I'm going to tell you, with like a Mars retrograde coming later in the year in your 5th house on your South Node, and also it's going to be on his Venus. That can be something where even if you take a step back, it like reels you back in. I think the other thing is he's got Uranus on one of your angles, so he kind of blows everything up for you and makes you kind of realize where like your identity in the world could change. You could go from being a little iffy about commitment to being like, yes, I could. So he definitely alters the path moving forward. But, you know, I've seen thousands of charts at this point, and I feel like it doesn't get much better than having some kind of aspect where it's like a Venus trine Jupiter, Venus trine the South Node-ish, and or also Jupiter North Node in the 7th. That in itself feels very faded. Worst case scenario, he represents the type of person that's going to teach you more about relationship and partnership. Best case scenario, it could actually be a match. You'd have to look at this more from like a composite perspective and see what the composite chart looks like. I would recommend looking at like a midpoint. I would also say that you're finally out of Venus, Saturn on your natal Venus. You're finally out of Uranus square your natal Venus. When you have really intense trines, like Uranus coming into a trine with your sun, it's going to throw you into a relationship, girl. You haven't seen that yet. Especially with somebody who is younger, which he checks that box. Especially with somebody who might be a Leo, he checks that box. And it's going to be about enjoying passion and play and creativity together. I like it. I just think he's used to being in love with women who keep him at a distance with that Moon Neptune opposed Venus. I'd ask a lot of questions about his past dating history and where there's been either issues where women have been unavailable. He likes creative, spiritual, artistic women, but could have some mommy issues with the Moon Neptune opposed Venus. You know, he might like chasing after people who don't always present themselves as available. So I think that it'd be something worth kind of talking about. But yeah, I think that this is a really interesting thing. Just keep in mind that you guys have Mercury opposed Mercury, and it's in a square to his natal Pluto. He's got Pluto square your sun too, so kind of like power struggles-esque. It's like pushing you out of your comfort zone. And with his Venus trine your Uranus, it's a good mix. It's just unusual. He should be different in some way than what you would usually meet or date. I say go for it. And even if you push him away, I bet you dollars to donuts that during that Mars retrograde later this year, he comes back. You know? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Let me know how it goes. Hey Fiona, I'm happy to do that for you. I have your info, so I can pull your chart up. Just send me the birthday of the person. Let me plug you in. May 5th, 76. I'm interested to see what you have, Fiona. It's about to be go time in your life, relationship-wise. You're very welcome, Aqua Goat. I love that. Makes me think of like, you know, like the actual Capricorn. People think of Capricorn and they think of the goat. Has anybody else seen the mermaid goat? That's the real Aqua Goat. It's like half goat, half mermaid fish thing. Ooh, you got a 1990. Those are some freaky boys. All right, let's see. September 24th, 1990. All right, let's get it. All right, so my dear, obviously your chart is on the inside. His is on the outside. Well, I mean, you got a couple things going for you. Whole sign wise, he's a Libra, so that is at least positive because you've got somebody who has the same sun sign as your ascendant. So those of you guys who are wanting to learn more about synastry, bringing somebody in who's got their sun in the same sign as your rising sign is very compatible. They're going to stick to you like glue, generally. Obviously, you need a couple different aspects, but that's somebody who's going to be like, hey, what you're aiming to achieve in life, who you are, where you're going, it's comfortable. There's a sense of familiarity and that you guys are similar in some way. So sun ascendant is a good start. A lot of the things that you're hoping to achieve in life, just looking at the fact that he's an early degree Libra and you're kind of a mid-range, he's gone through a lot of the changes emotionally, home-wise, everything, and kind of figuring out where he wants to go recently. So he's more so ready. It's less age, more about experience with his transits. He's got a moon conjunct your Neptune, so that can feel really emotionally nice and that you guys can connect and that you can share. He also has his Mars on your Mercury pretty close within 7 degrees. So he's down to talk about culture, philosophy. He's down to travel. He's down to go places. I like somebody who has Mars in my 8th house. I feel like that's kind of sexy. Moon opposed Mars as he likes kind of dominant, fierce, forward, like very Queen of Wands type women. So he likes women that are going to be a little bit more direct. With his Mars in opposition to your Neptune, I think that there can be some situations where you're like, where are we going? What's the plan, right? Mars is forward motion. It can sometimes, Mars in Gemini will tell you what you want to hear. But when it's in opposition to your Neptune, it's like, okay, well, are we on the same wavelength? Are we, you know, are we on the same, I think, path forward? So you can get a little lost in the muck of like, well, what are we doing? Are we dating? Do we have time for each other? Be mindful of that. But having somebody whose sun is in a, I think, positive aspect to your Mercury is great for communication. Having somebody whose Jupiter is relatively close to your moon is going to make you feel more positive and optimistic. Where I'm a little iffy, this isn't about synastry, it's more about aspects, is that he does have Venus in Virgo. So he's picky with women. Venus is at 22, so he does like older women. He also has Neptune and Jupiter coming into an opposition with his Venus. So it makes me feel like literally Neptune can be a foreigner. Jupiter can be somebody who shows up and just expands everything. And it can be about him kind of having a connection with somebody who's traveling or at a distance this year. He's done with his Saturn return. I really like that his planets in Capricorn, like Uranus and Neptune, they trine your Venus, they trine your Jupiter, they trine your South Node. So even though he's younger, he's mature, you guys can communicate in a very earthy kind of practical way. But when we're looking at him very specifically, you know, he's got an Earth Venus, so he's really kind of practical. He plans things out. Venus in Virgo is kind of a giver. He should communicate relatively well. Because Venus is conjunct Mercury, so it's a lot of how are you feeling, what do you need, how can I help you, do you like this? It's a very communicative, and also I would imagine like the love language can be more acts of service, right? Wanting to help you type thing. So yeah, I mean, I like it. There's not a lot of aspects that are being made to your 7th house, which isn't necessarily bad, but I'm a little iffy with his Mars moon opposition and the square to Mercury, that sometimes he's changeable and being like, I want this. Oh, I changed my mind. We're going in this direction. Okay, never mind. He can have a tendency to overthink things with Mercury in a square to his moon and his Mars. It's like overthinking. And then he can take too long to make a decision or he can rush into things. Just be mindful of that. His sun is also relatively close to your Pluto, so it can be a little intoxicating, or there can be this sense of like, feeling drawn to him. The one other thing that's coming up also that I didn't really see until just now is the fact that his Pluto opposes your sun. That's big. His Pluto opposes your sun and his Chiron's on your midheaven. Sun-Pluto opposition is a power struggle. It's kind of like who's in charge, right? And being that your sun's in the 8th house and his Pluto's in the 2nd, it's who's paying for things, who's enjoying things, who's the person who's calling the shots. I'd be curious to hear how the interaction has gone with him already. That can be a lot of like cat and mouse games at first, but it can materialize as kind of like eventually turning into a situation where, especially financially, things can get a little sticky. Like, you know, usually when people have planets in your 8th house, they spoil you. So his Mars being there is great. Sexually, he'll be giving, he'll be communicative, all that stuff. But his Pluto in opposition to your sun makes me feel like that there can be issues down the road when it comes to asserting yourself financially, or in a sense of just being confident and really in your power as you're progressing and you're seeing that you're doing more in your career. Could be somebody who gets a little insecure about that, possibly, right? Not a bad chart. I think the Earth stuff really kind of helps fluff this out a little bit. Jupiter square Jupiter, Jupiter square Venus. There can just be a lot of indulging in like sex and spending time together and eating and feeling like you're enjoying all the creature comforts. But I would say go deeper than that. What are you guys actually bringing in for each other, right? His transits are really great for meeting somebody, especially because he's got Venus behind his sun. I mean, he is supposed to meet somebody, I think, who is very culturally different and diverse. And even if you are going back and traveling, there is a lot that still makes sense looking at these aspects. But I'll tell you, you know, right now for a Libra rising chart, having Mars and Saturn coming into conjunction in your 5th house of dating and lovers, there's a sense of being like, okay, I'm dealing with a younger person. Okay, great. But I'm still maintaining a sense of responsibility and being very cut and dry and clear about what I'm seeking, what I'm hoping to achieve in dating. So it's important that you're communicating that. Something else is he's got Chiron on your midheaven. It's on an angle, so it can be some sense of like him possibly creating a wound in some capacity. Some would say somebody's Chiron on your midheaven is like, look, they're going to show up and like they can partner, but it might hinder and take away from your career, might take away from your public image. It might take away from this want or this need to be a parent. He might say, whoa, I don't know if that's in the cards for me. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Ask about his relationship with his dad. He's got Sun square Uranus. So even though he may seem very grounded, this is somebody who can kind of turn on a dime a little bit. And usually Sun square Uranus people, there's no telling them what to do. So I look at some of the aspects that are going on in his transits in May, June, when a partner really wants to partner, or they're like, okay, let's go. Is he going to respond well to that? That's the questions that I have. But it's not, I'm not seeing any like blaring red flags. I would say go look into Pluto opposed the sun aspects. You know, in your chart, it's going to be about your goals and it's going to be about your resources and whether or not you feel like you guys are on the same page about your goals. Some people like that challenge, right? Some people. But I would say it can be a bit difficult when it comes to who's in charge. And I think he may have some insecurities about just somebody who's just very secure with themselves, with their body, with their self-esteem, with their money, with their career. That can bring some friction, you know? Let me know if you have any questions. It's not common. You know, you'd have to, it's like, for example, I mean, you're going to have that with anybody who's got Pluto and Scorpio. So more specifically those years. So like 1989 to 1992. So it's just that particular group of people that are going to have that exact opposition. I would say you would want to watch more so for like Leos or Aquariuses from that year. That would be more difficult because it would be a T-square. But an opposition can be an opportunity. It can represent the ability to problem solve and talk about, you know, making money together. But it's not necessarily a bad move. I'm just a little iffy about his Chiron on the midheaven. And pay attention because everything that's happening for the next 2 weeks, for everybody, it's very karmic. But for Libra charts and Taurus charts, or Libra suns or Taurus suns, with the Saturn-Venus conjunction, people are committing to things very seriously. So there can be a sense of being like, hi, I'm not looking to just screw around. This is what I'm looking for. See what he says, you know? Hopefully that is helpful for you. Get your guys' readings in before we call last call. It looks like we got somebody else in here. For Create Hair, June 29th, 1967. And that's at 1:05 a.m., Newark, New Jersey. So you got a Aries rising, Sun in Cancer, Moon in Aries. I love your message. What the heck is happening with the North Node in Taurus, South Node in Scorpio? Your question is good as mine. Just kidding. What is happening? Well, what's happening is you have the North Node going through your second house of self-esteem, money, and resources, which tells me that you're going through a situation where, let's just say, by the time you get to next year, you will be more financially self-sustainable. Okay? Be more responsible for your own money, how you're making money, innovating in your financial goals. Maybe you're building on your self-esteem. Maybe you're going to be focusing more on talents, things that you can build, things that you can create. But I mean, really the second house is resources. So it can manifest as, oh my gosh, you know, money that I had coming in, South Node eclipses in your 8th, it's not coming in. It could be that you had a spouse that was covering things, now they don't. Could be you were receiving child support, or you thought you were going to continue to get an inheritance, but you're not. It just depends. South Node eclipses in the 8th does remove some kind of support from other people. It also makes it harder for you to qualify for loans or, you know, things like that. But that North Node in your second house is saying you got to get in your body, focus on your voice, how you're communicating, focusing on what you're doing specifically with your values. I see where you're kind of getting nailed. You're getting nailed because it's also the transiting South Node on your Neptune, and it's all squaring your Venus. So, you know, the node square Venus is like you got to add some love and you got to add a little more, right? Uranus square Venus is that there's changes and upsets and shakeups happening in 5th house things, like taking chances. You may have some unusual turnouts with investments, right? If you're somebody who regularly gambles or you invest in the stock market, there can be some things that come up that you're like, whoa, you know, it's not really panning out the way that I thought it would. It can also materialize as you feeling very strongly there's this really romantic or creative urge that's coming out because it's squaring Venus in your 5th. I wonder if it's bringing up issues in regards to problems with lovers, your love life, or children. That's another way it could materialize because Venus in the 5th of children ruling the 7th. That can bring up some issues as well. But yeah, you want to take it step by step. The nodes are not just now in your second house where you're more financially responsible for yourself or your food or what you're eating or your body, but it's also squaring Venus. So it's bringing up this sensitivity and realizing like, oh my gosh, I need to open my heart. Oh my gosh, I need to paint. I need to take an acting class. I need to find a younger person and make all my wildest romantic dreams come true. Or I need to spend more time with my children, right? These kinds of things. So the eclipses are not just strong because it's happening in your 2nd and your 8th house. They're strong because it's aspecting your Neptune, where you're fleshing out old, outdated ideas in regards to relationships and realizing that certain relationships are fading away or certain relationships maybe appeared better than what they really were. And now you're seeing a sense of disillusionment in those relationships. You may be feeling more inclined to, you know, seeing what else is going on behind the scenes because now you got Jupiter and all these planets going into your 12th. For Aries and Aries rising, there's this feeling of like a meltdown that's like, what's going on? Well, there's a lot wrapping up for you with a chart like this, especially over the next couple of months, right? So there's going to be something here that's going to kind of clear out in regards to issues with self-expression, feeling secure or safe in relationships or what have you. And once the node comes out of a square with your Venus, it's going to be easier, I think. But once it comes out of a square with your Venus, the South Node is also in your Neptune. So there's a lot changing where you're healing the inner child, doing a lot of work creatively, learning how to be more authentic in your self-expression, and dealing with not putting your self-worth or your value on whether or not other people make you feel fulfilled. That's a big thing, especially when Venus is you know, in Leo. You need a lot of attention. Saturn's in opposition to your Venus, so you're feeling the pull, right? It's like, no, it's not about my kids, or no, it's not about my lovers. No, it's not about that. It's about the collective. And so you're kind of getting pulled in all different directions. It's a setup really until the end of summer. That'll be a grand fixed cross. So it's very complex. But with just the North Node in your second house, it's saying invest in yourself, invest in your body. How do you feel? Make yourself feel good. Create as an outlet of self-expression. South Node in Scorpio, let go of old toxic ways of being, old toxic connections, fears revolving around not having enough. And oh, by the way, around the beginning of November, you have an eclipse on your... Yeah, around the beginning of November, you're going to have an eclipse on your South Node. That's really clearing this out. Or excuse me, the end of October. It's going to be right here. October 24th, that's clearing stuff out. And then you're going to have your nodal return, which happens every 18, almost 19 years, where the South Node transits the South Node, the North Node transits the North Node. Looks like by March of 2023, it wants you to be at home with yourself, at home with your body, focusing on things going on in regards to what you are building, what you are looking for security. Extremely complex for people in the 60s. You are going to have your Saturn return here still in a couple years, so you're still kind of in the process right before that clearing starts. That would be a chart that I would say you would really benefit from getting a reading, because like I said, it's hitting your Venus and your Neptune. It's not just the nodal transits, but it's all getting you in alignment to be more at home with yourself come spring of next year. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Hey, Catherine. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. I saw, yeah, you're in here. If you want to get your reading, let me know. Looks like Rachel snuck in there as well. Let's see what Rachel said. And Catherine, yeah, just send me your info if you have a question. This is the last live for the month also, for those of you guys who are members, if you want to get your questions in. 4/16/82. And that was at 2:30 p.m. Eureka, California. Oh, I read that backwards. 5/4/84, excuse me. There we go. 2:30 p.m. (4/16/82). She says, what's the deal with this guy and I? We can't let each other go. There's so much love, but it feels at a distance. Like it's hard to be together, but we just can't stop trying to be together. Got it. Okay, Catherine, no worries. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. Well, oh boy. I mean, can I ask you, SR, just let me know what your name is. I didn't see you pop in, but maybe it's still updating. Rachel, can I ask you, like, what has happened over the Venus retrograde, is this the person that you were like, is this pajama guy? Is that who this is? I have to ask. Honey, look at his not his transits, look at his placements. Sun in Aries in opposition to Pluto in Libra. So that's somebody who's used to having people at a distance, okay? Saturn, Venus, Pluto, Mars, all these planets have been squaring it. So it's been teaching him how to evolve into being able to be in a relationship and not being as selfish in partnerships. I will tell you that because his sun is on your chart ruler, Mercury. Okay, it's pajama guy. I thought so. Because his sun is on your Mercury, it's like you can't stop thinking about him. And it's hard to stop talking to him as well. It's less about, oh, we can't be together. It's more about there's some issues revolving around things that should have been resolved really over the last couple of months with all of the transits in the 5th house. That's about whether or not he's really open and ready for love. So I don't know if you want to expand on that, but, you know, being like, hey, what's the deal? We can't let each other go. Thanks, Sang. I'll check it out. I think that his moon being in your 5th house is probably a lot of your Saturn lessons right now. He is coming out of Pluto square Pluto and Pluto square Sun. But I feel like this is somebody where physically the connection can be good. But I'm not wild about like his Pluto and his Jupiter conjunct your Saturn, because really it keeps reiterating the fact that you guys come together and you go apart, you come together, go apart, is the need for you to really focus on the self-esteem and be like, I need more. It's not good enough, right? He's the lost puppy, honey. If a guy's got their sun in your 8th house, they are either going to rub you the wrong way until you finally say something and change, or it's going to be a relationship with somebody that really changes your life and you feel like there's no going back after that. Obviously, you want to look at more than just the 8th house synastry, but I feel like with his moon in Aquarius, he detaches. He doesn't always know how to communicate. So moon square your Venus is like he's there, but he's not saying all the words. And for somebody like you who's got a lot of Taurus energy, that's like, hey, show up, make it practical, make it real. And he's got Mars, Saturn, Pluto in an air sign. He's also got, you know, Neptune that is in a square to your ascendant. There's a lot of him being like, well, I know I want you around, but I don't know what I'm ready for. I mean, sounds like it's really like an element thing. You have to understand he's used to having relationships or people at a distance. So there's a lot of beating around the bush, right? Personally, I would also say the fact that his Venus is in Pisces is he's also used to kind of coming and going, not with other people, but it's a double-bodied sign, right? The fish are going to swim in two directions. They show up and then they're like, okay, I'm here. And you're like, what do you want? And then they go away and then you're like, where'd they go? So, I mean, an Aries with a Mars in Libra is expecting the other person to be aggressive. You get what I'm saying? He wants somebody who's going to go after him and pursue him. And then he's got Venus in Pisces, Venus square Uranus. A lot of on and off, make or breaks type things. And I do think he's more so ready now that Saturn's off of his moon, now that the squares are off of his sun. But this is a guy who's like waiting to see if somebody's going to pursue him. You know? Have you ever said to him, like, what do you want? You know? Have you ever just asked him that? Because I feel like if you approach it in a way that's very direct and logical and kind of practical, he may be more receptive to that. That's the impression I get. He may be. But usually I look for like Saturn contacts. Well, you got Venus and Jupiter, Jupiter and Saturn conjunct, so there's a contact. You've got Mars and Pluto conjunct, there's a contact. And I think a lot of this has more so to do with that he's activating midpoints for you between your sun and your Mercury. Okay, and the sun is personal. Mercury is your idea. So I feel like I would say to him, what do you want? The fact that his Mercury is very close to your Mercury sun midpoint is I'd be like, what are you looking for? What is it you want? Cut to the chase. especially being that you're going to have Mars and all these planets go into Pisces here pretty soon. Like, somebody's definitely going to be here. It's not going to be a matter of, is somebody going to show up? But it's like, what do you want? Because all that Pisces energy can be very kind of elusive and not very clear about the direction that they're going in. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like he has enough air in his chart that you could ask him that. But Mercury square the moon opposed Jupiter is like, he has grand ideas, but he intellectualizes everything. He thinks everything over before he says everything. And like I said, being that he is in Aries with Mars in his 7th house, he likes women that are like, are we going to do this? What are we doing? You want to get together? You want to have something? And Uranus is on your sun here pretty soon. So it tells me that you don't want to have another situation where somebody comes in and then they just disappear. Right? Yeah, shake him up a little bit, Rachel. Shake him up a little bit. Ask him, you know. I mean, eclipses being in Scorpio for any Taurus is going to bring up lots of stuff in regards to relationships. In your case, in the 3rd house, it's communicating. What do you want? Where are you going? What are we doing? Not a bad match, but he has definitely been kind of going through it the last couple of months. He hasn't been ready, and now he's coming out the other side. Yeah. And I think with your natal Uranus on his south node, with his natal Uranus on your south node, it activates the ability for you to be like, here it is. Here's what I have to say. But not just texting and going back and forth. It needs to be more in person. All the planets are going into Aries, you know, have a face-to-face conversation with him. We don't know his 7th house. I'm just saying from the sun. So he's, you know, Aries sun, Mars in Libra. So that puts Mars 7 signs away from his sun. It means he likes partners that are a little more aggressive, ones that pursue him. But Mars is retrograde for him, which means his ruling planet, Mars, we don't know his ascendant, but Mars is one of his ruling planets or co-rulers, is turning inward. There's a lot of him reflecting. Yeah, he's been working on himself. I mean, he's been a bit of a hot mess with all these squares between Pluto and the sun. I think he's been doing a lot of reflecting on where he's had issues with commitment and issues with, you know, settling into a relationship and not feeling like he's in control, and also reflecting on why past relationships didn't work, and it's because he wasn't mature enough, and he has never really felt like he's ready to be in a serious relationship because he doesn't feel like he's figured his life out yet, right? The Saturn-Pluto squares were happening between his sun of the south and all of the Saturn-Pluto in the 7th house. Has this guy been divorced with Saturn and Pluto in Libra? Or did he have like a broken engagement or a relationship that fell apart that felt like a divorce? Oh, yeah. Major hot mess. Yeah. That's pretty common. You know, anybody who's listening, 83, 84, 85, you know, those Pluto squares, the Venus squares, the Mars squares, that was a difficult time. It was showing where we need to step up. So now I think he's focusing on maturity and seeing more growth within his professional life so he can better show up in a relationship. Well, that's good. I think your Jupiter on his Saturn, his Jupiter on your Saturn is, you see the potential in him, but you really want to communicate and get past just talking about potential. We want to see broken engagement. So there's something there, especially with Mars. It's a more difficult planet, 7 houses from his sun. Usually that's the indication. Yeah. Yes, you have, but I mean, Uranus is coming out of a square with your Saturn, so things are changing a little bit. Yeah, it's coming out of an opposition with your Saturn, which means it's going to liberate you from all the things that you're not communicating or expressing. I would say after the events that are taking place mid-April, it may be a different ball game. It's meant to help you kind of clear things out and be very direct with what you want or what you don't want. Hopefully that's helpful. Hey, Jessica. No, it's not too late. Let me know. I'm not sure if I read for you this month or not. I don't have you, so let me know. Okay, Sang. I'm glad you're feeling better, Rachel. I'm excited to see what happens. Tell him you want more than pajamas. I want your heart. All right, so we've got April 12th, 1975. Okay, guys, we're gonna close down readings after this, so it'll be beyond final call. Laos at 10. Is it 10 a.m.? 10:20 a.m. Okay. Where is that? Okay, Jessica, send me your info. All right, so just wanted career-related insights, please. I feel I know I'm guided to where I need to go. And I just want to know what the direction is. I know it's the creative field to do with fashion and doing my own thing. What do you see in the stars? I also feel like the purpose is more. You're welcome. Create. I'm glad it resonated. Oh man, you ladies with all these 90 and 91 people. Don't you know those boys are wild? All right, so I'll read your stuff in a second, Jessica. All right, saying, so in regards to where you're going with some of your professional stuff, you know it's meant to be creative. Wow, this is such an interesting time in your life right now. A lot of this is focusing on your vision. You know, you've got Jupiter and Neptune, which is what you're believing in, coming into an alignment with your midheaven, helping you believe in making changes. It's also about what you're designing. Whole sign, that's going to be in your 9th house. So it's also about applying new skills and other things that you might be learning, or things that relate to like import and export and design. Whether or not you need to brush up on some of those skills and take some courses or classes, or if you would like to participate in continuing education. I think the other thing is right now it's quite an intense period. You've had Pluto in a square to your moon. In your chart, the moon rules your chart. So there's a lot of you breaking down and going like, okay, I have to do things in a way that feels good, that's in alignment with my goals. I need to have this breakthrough. But being that all these planets are coming into your 9th, it's about learning more about skills, learning more about integrating that. Like if you need to learn something to adapt to new professional stuff, so be it. So I would wonder, are there new techniques that you need to learn? You know, the horoscope is actually rather good for you, especially later in the year, because 10th house for you is also Aries. So you're going to have a Jupiter return with Venus starting in May. So from about mid-May really through July, I can see lots of opportunities for your own business, doing something on your own. To shift back to whole sign, Jupiter, Mercury, Sun, and Moon all in the 10th house is like, you know, when you talk about purpose, making clothes for individuals, making clothes that are going to be different, unique, fierce, like Aries. Could be like athletic wear, I'm wondering, or just having your own business in general with all those planets in the 10th. You want to think back to 12 years ago, like in, 2012, I guess, maybe. I think it's no, wait, that wouldn't be 12 years ago. It'd be 2010 when Jupiter went through your 10th house the last time. The difference is now it's actually going to be Saturn sextile your sun. So it's not just how do I do it, but how do I build something of structure? How do I make it last long term? Being that the sun rules your 2nd house, I would also say clothing for youth. Maybe something that gives back to youth. Maybe something that allows you to create like a nonprofit or a donation platform in some capacity to giving back to younger people who are in need. I also wonder if there's going to be like an opportunity for you to wear stuff that you can put over your head, Aries. So like hat, caps, things like that, things that you might wear over your ears or things like that. Stuff that can have much more of like a militant or a reformed kind of look. So there can be a sense of like you creating stuff that's got shoulder pads and things that are going to be like more kind of like military style. I know that sounds silly, but that's very Aries in the 10th house. It may even go back to veterans. I don't know if that's something that, you know, you feel very passionately for, but it could be that. And maybe lifestyle clothing that's going to allow people to be able to like personalize it and alter it, or like have pockets for things that they can stick stuff in. That can be very Aries as well. But having Jupiter coming into conjunction, you know, with your natal Jupiter, you're going to have several Jupiter returns. So the first one is going to take place right around here, around mid-June. And then you're going to have another one that's going to take place around early September. And that's when you integrate. And then the last one is going to be here. And it's going to be when you also start having Saturn come back into a sextile with your moon. To me, it looks like the goal is more about setting things in motion June, July, with the intention of building it fully out to see it all the way to full capacity in the new year, 2023, right? Helping youth and elders for sure. Bringing them together in some way. Maybe it's like, you know, providing services where elders can make clothing for youth, or elders are teaching youth, or maybe, you know, elders are leading youth in how to make things and actually form things and bring things together. Maybe it's about, you know, giving jobs for elderly parents or older parents who are taking care of younger people. There's some connection there, right? And I think that because your midheaven is at a 21, your goal is to be able to teach and educate people. So it might be that you're more diverse in the business that you create, and that you are willing to train young people and bring young people in, that you don't have a problem having older people who also come in and want to teach techniques and things that younger people could benefit from. And because the ruler of your 10th house is natally in your 10th house, Jupiter, and Neptune is in the 6th in a trine, the other way that I look at this is you could make cool like little bags and clothing or things for animals. I know that sounds silly, but like maybe if it's like somebody who's like, yeah, I want a bag so I can carry my dog, or I want to put a vest on a service animal, you could design things like that, because Neptune could be animals. I'm really liking that Mercury Jupiter. So maybe it's like clothing that maybe like people can have matching sets, or you have stuff for people who want to have a service dog that like looks more stylish. That's another option, but definitely you need to learn more about importing and exporting and bringing in materials and stuff from other places, so you can do it in a way that's more, I think, financially doable, if that makes sense. And you're going to learn a lot more about that, I think, when Mars goes into Pisces. And you might start like looking at your options, like if I want to, you know, design things, where do I bring it in from, and stuff like that. That's going to be happening more for you. Sorry, I got to go backwards here. From the end of April through mid-May. Yeah. I actually really think with Jupiter and Mars coming into conjunction with your Jupiter, which is your whole sign ruler of the 6th, I would recommend, I mean, it's like pets are so hot right now. It's so crazy. Like people aren't having kids, they're getting dogs. So I wonder, is there something where you're like, hey, there's a specific nonprofit I want to give back to, or maybe you start one, something like that. There's something like that that you could do, especially with the trine to Neptune. Think like matching jumpers or things like that, you know? Hopefully that's helpful. But I will tell you, clothing is a good idea. Cancer rising, sun and moon in the midheaven, in the 10th house, great. Whole sign, it's in the 10th house. But finally coming out of that Pluto square your moon, and it tells me it's about letting go of the fear of not having support resource-wise. You might have to get a little creative with how you fund it, but I definitely think it's doable. Hopefully that is helpful for you. Thank you, Jessica. That's really sweet of you. I appreciate it. I know that you are super supportive on my channel and on the podcast. That's really awesome of you. I thank you. Let's take a look at what you got going on here. So 11/29/85. 6:48 p.m. And that's in Santa Ana. All right, and then this person's birthday is 4/14/91. Oh man, I know some people from that year who are Aries. All of their squares. Okay, so we've got all of your placements with Sag. Is that correct? 6:48 p.m. in Santa Ana. Okay, cool. Cancer rising. So, well, his Mars is conjunct your moon. That's sexy. A little dangerous, a little passionate, a little hidden, but very intense. I mean, I think having somebody who has Mars conjunct your ascendant or an angle in general, it's going to be a fierce exchange, but also on your moon and your chart ruler makes me feel like it can be really hot and heavy behind the scenes. So sexually, it can be really great. I like that they have their North Node Juno in your 7th. Saturn in your 8th. Saturn's technically, it's in your 8th. Sun and Mercury in Aries and a moon in Aries. So, you know, to me, it makes me kind of feel like you have to understand this is a lot of Aries energy. We're assuming, I don't know, if they're born earlier in the day, they're going to definitely be in an Aries moon, but later in the day, it could be Taurus. It's really riding that line. Sun-Mercury conjunction is interesting because that's pretty fierce, but the Mercury is retrograde. So look at all the Mars aspects that you guys have. His Sun and Mercury opposes your Mars. His Mars conjuncts your moon. It's interesting that he's in Aries with Mars in Cancer, so that does calm him down a little bit. It's the Venus in Gemini for me. Oh, he's a Scorpio rising. Okay. So that puts all of your Capricorn in his 3rd, all of your Sag in his 2nd, and your Pluto South Node Juno on his ascendant. Hey, I kind of like that. I take that back a little bit. The aspects are still, it's still the same aspects though. So if he's a Scorpio rising and you have Pluto South Node Juno on his ascendant, your North Node's in his 7th. So you're his eclipses. So there's a lot of reevaluating the relationship potential then during the eclipse season and the Mercury retrograde in Taurus. So it'll be like after the eclipses in mid-May and when Mercury starts going retrograde, it's kind of like, okay, well, what are we doing here? It's not so much his Venus in Gemini, although that does put his Venus in his 8th house, which does mean that he does like having like little affairs and things. It's that his Venus is in opposition to your Saturn and his Venus is in opposition to your Mercury and your Sun. You have to understand your Sun, Mercury, Saturn sits in his 2nd house, which means you're going to go, that's mine. Don't touch it. So there is going to be a sense of you wanting to hold on to him, and it's not a bad thing. Your Saturn's in his 4th, so it can be very grounding. But being that all of that energy of, you know, his, I don't know. Oh, okay, cool. So he tells you about it. Okay, it's not just a Venus and Gemini thing. Actually, I would say you need, if it is a Venus and Gemini, you need to look at the aspects. I'm more hesitant about a man that's got Venus in his 8th house. Honestly, that's just me. But long-term wise, the fact that your Sun, Mercury, and your Saturn sit in opposition to his Venus is a lot of like, well, do you value me? Do you want me? Do you not want me? What's going on? That Sun-Venus opposition can be difficult. I'm not really getting any red flags though, because to be honest with you, all of your placements are really good in his chart. It's just you're going to kind of stroke his ego a little bit, right? Whenever you have all those planets in the second house, I would say there is a sense of you building him up and making him feel good and making him feel wanted. What makes me a little iffy is whether or not your moon is going to fall in his 8th house or in his 9th, depending on the degrees, right? Because your moon could fall in his 8th house. Some Scorpio risings, especially if it's like 15 degrees on, your moon will be there. So it's a very intense exchange, and it can be like this sexual back and forth to see, you know, who's going to be the one who's going to break. Just a lot of cat and mouse games is what I see in this chart. Yeah. Yeah, you do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that Scorpio risings in general right now, regardless of where the rest of the placements are, there is going to be a real emphasis on knowing and kind of learning what it means to experience more of a domestic union. So like, even if you guys are just getting to know each other, there's a lot of playing house with each other and his house or your house and seeing how that goes, which is like a big grow up period for him. And if he's a Scorpio rising with all of this Aries, the Aries is on the cusp of the 7th. So what you're actually going to see is that, you know, it's just, he likes to have time to work out. He likes to have time to himself. He likes to have time to organize, keep things clean. He's going to have a very kind of Virgo edge to him, being a Scorpio rising with all that Aries. So his time is very important to him. But I think that he's going through a transit right now where he has to learn more about relationships. And I would say with the eclipses and Uranus conjunct, I think he's going to probably realize he's got a lot more feelings or emotions than he thought. And that he's moving out of old patterns of just having all these little love affairs and moving more into a direction of like finding somebody that catches him off guard, who he's willing to let into his private space. So if a Scorpio rising, especially if they have like an 8th house Venus or, you know, a lot of Venus Pluto aspects, they'll be very iffy about letting people into their home. So if he's letting you come in and you're spending time together, hey, I mean, he's opening up. The Mars moon, though, just being that Mars rules your whole sign 10th, it can be a sense of, even though he's younger, it's like he's going to be daddy. There's a lot of him dominating with his Mars on your moon, his Sun, Mercury oppose your Mars. Yeah. One thing I would say for you is also, just a heads up, men who have Mars on your moon or Mars quincunx your Pluto, you better be careful. That's like pregnancy energy, you know? It's not intentional. It's just, especially in Cancer, it's just very, there's a lot of energy there that's very fertile. Be mindful of that. And with your Pluto square his Saturn, there's going to be a sense of like, yeah, I'm not going to give away all the goodies. Yep. Your Pluto on his ascendant square his Saturn in his 4th is like, no, it's, you know, maybe you go to his house, he doesn't come to yours. There's some sense of you not fully opening up to him until you feel it out. You have Uranus in your 7th, so it's not unusual for you to have kind of wacky people. But I think his North Node Juno was what I really like. And I will tell you that in his astrology, because it's in the 3rd to his rising, that means he's supposed to be in a relationship to somebody who he marries that is older and has a lot of like either Saturn aspects, which you do, Saturn's conjunct your Mercury and your Sun, or there is some sense of this person being very mature in how they communicate and express themselves. Or at least men trying to get me pregnant. Mars on your moon will do that. The Mars conjunction or a Mars square, and he's got it both ways. His Mars is on your moon and your Mars opposes his Sun and Mercury, which means you're going to make him work for it. Together, you guys create a bit of a cardinal T-square, right? Your Mars square all of his Capricorn, square his Aries. So when planets get into Cancer, this Cancer season is going to be a time to watch. So June and July. I think that's more a turning point where you're deciding whether or not you're really interested in partaking in something like this. But I'll tell you, similar to Pajama Guy, who had all those aspects between Aries and Libra, he's also coming out of a rough couple years. He has an Aries stellium in the 5th and Sagittarius. Yeah. Yeah. But fire fuels fire. And the fact that your Uranus squares all of his Aries is enough to kind of keep things like active. If a guy's got Venus in Gemini in the 8th, it just means that if he's not mentally stimulated enough, he'll talk to other women. Doesn't always mean he'll have sex with other women, believe it or not. But he'll talk to other people. But go and look more so into the synastry aspects of Venus opposed Saturn and Venus opposed Mercury. There can be a sense of like feeling like love is at a distance. And that's you, by the way. Saturn and Mercury is like, nope, I'm not giving you everything. So if he feels like you're not totally open up to communicating how you think or how you feel, he's going to feel shut down, right? I have to preserve his privacy, Rachel. I can't be blowing his cover and saying his name on the internet, so I'll call him Pajama Guy. I don't know. I'll tell you that once Mars gets to about 20 degrees, you're going to see what this is made of. Whether or not y'all are really going to go the distance or if you're just going to keep fucking around. So that's going to be about here. Yeah, June. Like I said, June or July, you know? Yeah, he does. But Scorpio risings, you see, that's interesting because Venus is the ruler of his 7th and he's got Venus in the 8th. Dish it back to him. I'm not telling you to make him jealous, but I would just be like, I'm fucking talking to other people too. You're an option, bro. And he'll snap into place real quick. When people have Gemini placements in their 8th house, if you let them know they're an option, or if you kind of distance a little bit with communication or let them know that you're talking to other people, they'll turn really quickly. Yeah, it's definitely going to be in June. But you can have a lot of fun between now and then. I would just say don't get pregnant. You got an eclipse that's coming conjunct your Pluto. So that's the other thing, is that that's really going to turn the page here at the end of October later this year. A South Node eclipse conjunct your Pluto is going to set things in motion where you start thinking more seriously about whether or not you want children, whether or not you want a serious relationship, whether or not you're growing with another person, right? You have to keep me updated. Let me know what happens. Thank you everybody who donated, was watching, commenting. I appreciate it. I'm stoked to be getting ready to do the video for tomorrow. It may be a really long one. I don't know. So if you watch this regularly, we might do the new moon and talk about all of the karmic transits and aspects because it's actually really going to be setting up Monday and Tuesday. So stay tuned for that. It'll be coming out later in the day, but it'll be coming out. Next week, we're going to be doing live on Saturday. We're going to be doing tarot. So if you want to get a tarot reading, you can get a tarot reading. Otherwise, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday evening, the rest of your weekend. Yes, I am having the Astro classes. So if you guys want to join, like I said, I have like 4 or 5 seats left. Check out the links below. You can sign up. It's going to be $100 off if you sign up before the class starts. Otherwise, it's going to be more expensive later this year when we package it and we sell it. So if you can't do it live, you will get the links. You can follow up. If you want to wait, you can wait. We'll probably be releasing it later at the end of summer. And I'm very excited also to be thinking about doing tarot and other astrology stuff. So stay tuned. Thank you guys for your support. I appreciate it. I will see all of you here back tomorrow. Otherwise, take care.